California dreaming about you.
SimCoder here, and today you are going to learn how we can choose the followers that we want to send an image to. So it will look somewhat like Snapchat does. So we'll have an activity with a checkbox, and the first one will be to save to the stories, and then we'll have a RecyclerView list with every single follower that we have, or better yet, every single person that we are following. That's better. And we'll be able to pick using checkboxes which ones we want to send the image to. So let's get on with it. And this is where we left off in the previous lesson. And now we'll change some things, obviously. So now we want to, from the show capture activity, have a button to take us to another activity where we'll make the choices of which users we want to send the image to, and we'll call it, let me just open it up right here. We'll create a new activity, and it will have yeah, let's go with empty activity, and then we'll add the things that we need. So we'll call it ChooseReceiverActivity. Okay, can go ahead and finish. Okay, all right, and now on the show capture, instead of on clicking the story button, which won't be story button, so I'm going to go inside the activity show capture, and instead of save to stories, let me just check what we'll call it. Let's call it send image for the text. So oops, okay, send image, and the button, let's call it send, because it makes more sense in the in what we are doing right now. Okay, so let's go back to show capture activity, and in here, instead of story, it is send, and the button, we'll call it msend, mstory. Okay, so now we can simply create an intent in here instead of that, which will take us to the new activity that we just created. So intent equals to new intent get application context choose receiver activity dot class. Okay, start activity intent and return. We are not going to finish this activity. I forgot to give it a name, so intent. Okay, and we are not going to finish this activity because we want, if the user wants to go back from the choose receivers activity to see the image that the user wants to send, then he can do it. Okay, so yeah, apart from that, we don't need to do anything else in here. We are going to remove this function from here, but it will be later on. For now, we'll just let it be. And now we'll go inside the choose receiver activity, and I'm going to clear up that. Okay, just stay with the activity choose receiver XML, and now we want to just use, as I said, first of all, a checkbox for the stories. So you'll see how it looks in a second. Let me just do this, change to a linear layout. And so we'll have a linear layout in here, which will have a width of match parent and a height of wrap content. Okay. The orientation will be horizontal. better yet, I don't need to actually do all of this. I'm going to go in here and followers item exactly, and I'm going to sorry, I'm going to copy the second linear layout, and that way I just have to change the button to edit text. Okay, that way it is much easier. So let's see how it looks. Okay, that's it. Button checkbox, and I'm going to clear up this a bit, so I'm going to remove these linear layouts. They don't need to have parent views. Okay, that looks much better. I'm going to remove the text. Okay, the checkbox, let's say story, and in here story, save to story. And when we go ahead and save the activity and save the image to some of the things that we clicked on, if this checkbox is checked, then we know that we must save it to the stories as we did before. Okay, so now we need to add the recycler view. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it right here. RecyclerView would be match parents wrap contents, and now let's do the ID. So add plus ID RecyclerView. Okay, and now in order to save we must have a button, and for that I'm actually going to do something a bit different, which will be to have a frame layout instead of a linear layout. I just remember that because we will be using a fab button, which is a round button. You'll see how it looks in a second. So let's just say wrap content, just so that we can use these frame layouts as we want. So let's move this to the bottom, and you may want to pause or check the GitHub to see how I did this layout, because I'm going kind of fast just so that I don't waste much time. And okay, so now we are going to use a fab button, and in order to have it you must go into build Gradle and add how do you call it, a dependency. There we go. So, and that dependency, and you can copy from what I just placed here, implementation com.android.support design, and then the version that we are using right now in your project. So in my case it's 27.0.2. So I'm going to go ahead and sync it. Okay, after that has finished syncing, you can go ahead and go back to the activity choose retriever, and now at the bottom we are going to use, as I've said, the floating, and this is changing the keyboard, I don't know why, but okay. So floating action button, and we are going to say wrap content. The margin will be 16 SP, and you can already see it looking how it looks right here. Now let's just set the ID. Okay, ID, and say fab for floating action button. We are going to set the layout gravity to bottom and end. So you put I don't know how you say it, pipe maybe, a pipe, vertical pipe in the middle, and say that you want to the bottom and to the end, which is the same as right. Okay, and now we are going just to put an image overlaying the button. So let's see, I'm just going to place anything actually, just so that you know that you can do it. So I'm going to get it from the Android, drawable, I see media play. Okay, that's enough, good enough. Okay, so now let's go to our activity, and it is ChooseReceiverActivity. And we are going to start working on the RecyclerView. So we are going to copy the RecyclerView that we have in the follow activity, the find user activity, better yet. So let's go right in there. And the reason why I'm doing this is because they look and feel basically the same. So yeah, it is better to do it like this. So I'm going to just copy everything, so the variables that have to do with the RecyclerView, just copy them. Then we'll copy all of these block that has to do with the RecyclerView. So let's just go inside the onCreate method and paste it there. Okay, I'm going to make it bigger for you guys. Okay, now we need the data set and the clear. Actually, the clear we don't need because we are only going to call it once. So we only need this portion of code, the array list, and the get group set, which will listen for the data. Okay, so let's just go in here, paste that, okay, and the arrow will disappear, and I'm going to just create the function listen for data for now, and we'll populate it later. So listen for data, just so that the error can go away. Okay, now all that's left is to call the button, the floating action button. So let's do it right now. Floating action button, mfab equals to find view by ID, r.id fab. And this is the round button, don't forget. And it is giving an error, I don't know why. Choose. Okay, everything seems to be fine. ID fab. Okay, so I just cleared the project, which is going here, and clean project, and the error went away. So now you know if something like that ever happened to you. So now we say mfab.set on click listener, new on click listener. Okay, and when the user clicks on this, we'll call a function that we'll create later, which will save the image and set the database childs that we need to set, so the saved stories or save to a user's child. So, but for now, let's leave it like that because we won't be using it for a bit. So now we are going to change the adapter that we are calling in the RecyclerView, because right now it is the follow adapter because we just copy and paste from the find users activity. But we need one specific to us because we are going to use checkboxes like we have for the save stories right here. And yeah, the follow adapter isn't enough. So let's create a package, new package. Let's see, what should we call it? So RecyclerView receiver. Okay, and we are going just to grab all of this and copy and paste it to the receiver. Because even though it is a small change and we need a new one. Okay, adding files. Okay, fine. And we also need a new item for this. So let's go right in here and say new layout resource file and say RecyclerView. Let me see how I call the other one. So RecyclerView receiver item. Okay. And now, just to get this done and over with, we are going to open up the followers item, and we are going to copy all of this and paste it into the receiver item. But we are going to make a change, as I said, and that is that instead of the button, it's going to be a checkbox. Okay, I'm going to remove the text and I'm going to say receive as an ID, just so that it is more comprehensive. I'm going to also clear this up a bit, because I thought I would place a lot more objects in here, but we don't need it, so I can clear it up. Okay, so now we know that it is received. We can go back to the not follow, so I'm going to refactorist. I forgot. So refactoring is just changing the names, so we can go in here, refactor, rename, and instead of follow, it is receiver adapter. And when you refactor there's a code that goes behind it that changes everything, and every time that you call that name or that function or that class or whatever, it will change it to whatever you set it to. So it is really cool, really simple. Okay, so let's just do it real quickly. Come in here, receiver object. Okay, now in the view holders we are going to change the button to the checkbox and say receive. Change this again. Receive. And it is giving an error, but I believe it is because of the adapter that, and we can come in here right now and change the RecyclerView followers item to RecyclerView ChooseReceiver. Okay, and we also need to change because mfollow no longer exists and it is still giving an error. Let me just check what I called it, just make sure. Not activity, and here it is not activity. I don't. Okay, let me go back. So layouts, RecyclerView, receiver item. Okay, RecyclerView receiver item. Okay, so I just cleared the project again and the error disappeared. I don't know why my IDE isn't having a good day, as it turns out. So we are going to clear all of this and we are going to come back to it later. For now, let me just check. Okay, that error disappeared with clearing it up. I can delete this. Find user activity, let's leave it there. Okay, and we'll change this later. So for now, what we need to change is the object. And we need to add another variable, which will be a Boolean variable, and let's call it receive. So anytime the user clicks a checkbox for the user, then this variable will change to the opposite. So if it is true, it will turn to false, and if it is false, it will turn to true. And what this will allow us to do is to, when the user clicks the floating action button to move on, then we'll be able to go through the list and get all of the users that have receive set to true, which is incredibly useful. So I'm going to duplicate one of these functions and say, what did you call? So receive and receive. Okay, return receive, return receives, receive. Make sure you change all of it, Boolean. Okay, and return receive. Okay, there's a Boolean left in here. Okay, and now we can go back to the adapter, and in here, so now let's say holder dot receive, which is our checkbox, dot set on click listener, new on click listener. Okay, let it load, and now will get the current state, receive state, so let's call it that, which will return the receive that we have in the object, so the get receive actually, equals to not, and this not is incredibly important, so not get users list dot get holder dot get layout position, which will give us the exact position that we must search for in the array, and dot get receive. Okay, and this exclamation point is incredibly important because it will turn a true into a false and vice versa. Okay, and now we can actually just copy these last parts. Oops. Paste it here, but instead of get receive, we'll set receive to receive state. Okay, so that's everything that we have to do right now, and we can actually close this off, can close off the object, but not this. So now I'm going to do a quick search for any word that says follow, and I'm going to click this button right here, which will allow us to change it right away. So receive, and it will change throughout all of the file to every follow word. Okay, it is incredibly useful. And now we'll need to re-import this. And I actually made a mistake because it is receiver, not receive. So after that, import again, receiver, import class, and we are done. Okay, so now we are going to start working on the listen for data, and this will be incredibly simple because we can just going to find user's activity and copy this listen for data, and it will be basically the same but with some minor adjustments, which we'll take a look right now. So let's just make this smaller. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to change is the child event listener. We are going to use a value event listener. So add value event listener and then value event listener. Okay, it will appear with an error, so just click Alt Enter Enter and import wherever it wants. And we are going to delete all of these because they are related to the child event listener. We are going to just move this out of the way and paste it to the onData change. And if this was a bit fast, then please take your time. It is incredibly important that you make this the right way. We are going to delete the query. Okay. And we are going to clear this if. We are going to change it for another if that you'll see in a second. So now instead of follow object, it is receiver object, and also change it here. And now, as you can see, there's an error here, and it is because we must pass another parameter, which is the receive parameter, and it will appear right here. Okay, so now let's add the if that I was talking about. And the if, it is quite simple. It is just if results doesn't have this current object, then you can go ahead and add it. It is just a check, just make sure there are no duplicates in the array. And now let's take care of the reference. So we'll get the reference from the users that we have in the, how was it called, the user information activity, which has this get user following and the list following, and that list contains every user that we are currently following. So let's just make a for here that will make a loop through all of those users and display them in the RecyclerView. So int I equals to 0, I smaller than user information dot list following dot size I plus plus. Okay, let me just move it move this, make sure that all of this is contained within the for. And now all that's left is to finish the database reference. So let's go right into the end of it and say child user information dot list following dot get I. And that's it, we don't need anything else. This will display the users in the recycler view. So now all that's left is to finish the button and to actually save the image to the data to the storage and record everything in the database. So we already have it done when it comes to the save to stories, which we can get right now. So let's go into the show capture activity, and here we are, and we have the function right here. So we are actually going to copy it. That's it. Let's go back to the choose receiver activity, and we are going to paste it here at the bottom. Okay, let it do its thing. And now there are two errors, better yet, because we must copy two more variables, which are the UID and the bitmap. So I'm going to copy both of them. Come in here. Then we need this try, which will get the bitmap from the storage that we saved in the previous lesson, I believe. Okay. And we need the UID, obviously. So let's just copy and paste it there. Okay. Do it at the top just so that if the bitmap, we are unable to get the bitmap, then it closes the activity and we don't have to worry about anything else. So yeah, that's it. And now the problem is that we are only saving to stories. We also want to save to the users. Okay, so what we are going to do is to come in here below inside the upload task, and what we are going to do is to get the checkbox for the stories. Checkbox and story equals to find view by id r.id.story, and we are going to say if mStory dot is checked, then simply creates this path in the database that which we already looked to in the previous lesson, so you can go and check it out. If you have any questions about this just creates, and I can pull up the database right here, it creates a child like this. So if this user, the user 1, creates a story, then it goes into its child, creates a unique ID with the image URL and the timestamp of the image. Okay, so this is done. We don't need to worry about anything else. We do need to loop through the results array. So let's do it now. For int I equals to 0 to I smaller than results dot size I plus plus. Then we say if the result position that we are looking at right now dot get I as the variable receive set to true, so we say get receive, then we can go ahead and save it to the database. And the way I'm going to do it is by creating a database reference, which will be user db equals to Firebase database dot get instance dot get reference dot child users dot child results dot get I dot get UID, and we are going now to create another child inside the user, which will be received with our name in it, our UID in it. And you'll, when you see this working, it will be much clearer why I'm doing this, but I can go ahead and explain it. And if the user 1, for example, sends an image to the user 2, then it will create, let me see, okay, received. Then it will create a child called received, and within it, it will have the user 1 ID, and inside it, it will have all of the images that user 1 has sent to the user 2. And that way we'll be able to only have to check if the user 2 has, let's say, one user 1 or one user 2, or better yet, one user 3. And anytime we watch the images, we can just delete that child, and it will be much easier. So I know that maybe it sounded a bit strange, but you'll see it working in a second. Let me just go in here. Okay, and let's say we can just copy this one, paste it here, and we are done. So yeah, I believe there's nothing else left to do, only to clear up the activity. So when this is all said and done, we are going to create an intent for the main activity and delete everything so that the user cannot go back to all of this, because we already have another activity open, which is the show capture activity, and this is just to make sure that nothing else happens. So intent, get application context, main activity dot class, intent dot add flags, and in the flags we are going to say that we are going to clear everything on top of this, so it will clear every activity. So flag activity clear top, start, not action, activity intent, finish, and return. And now all that's left is just to make a call for this function inside the fab button. Let's come in top in here, done. Okay, so yeah, I believe that's done. There's an error somewhere. Let me just find out. Okay, I forgot the semicolon. Okay, now that's done. I believe it is done, so let's just run the app and see if any errors show up. Okay, so before we actually go ahead and test it, let me just say that I forgot something, which is just to change the user story DB by users DB, which is this database reference right here. And okay, so now we are ready to go ahead and start. Let me just hit record on my phone and go to the okay. So I'm going to clear this up, hit record, and I'm logged in as the user 1. So yeah, we are going to try and send an image to the user 2. So let's go capture, send image, and we are going to choose user 2 and the save to storage just to see if it is working. Let's hit send. And there we go, the received appear right here with the ID of the user, and the stories is working as it should be because these two IDs are the same. Okay, so yeah, that's working just fine. It was a bit more work than I thought it would be, but yeah, if you got confused along the way, then please go back and watch it. It is incredibly important to get everything right, or check my GitHub. It is updated, so all of the code that we implemented here is there. You can go ahead and just copy and paste, but try to understand, because if you want to make some changes in the future, then you'll need to understand it. So yeah, that's all for now. I hope to see you again tomorrow, and ciao!